All right, everybody, continuing with our day, we're going to take a look at rebuilding a tech community in the post-pandemic world with Jen Looper.
Chris, just come right back here and sit down. He runs away. Awesome. Well, hey, everyone. I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy that folks have shown up at AWS. We're told in our speaker instructions that we're not supposed to say that I'm the one keeping you from lunch, but I'm going to say it anyway. So I'm the one keeping you from lunch. But hopefully we'll just take a little time to chat together. I'd love to make this an interactive session as much as we can to talk about, how we can rebuild tech communities in this post-pandemic, if there ever is such a thing as being post-pandemic, but this new world that we're living in now. And I'm just going to give you some tips and tricks. We're going to do a little interactive activity. So I brought some crafts, some things we can do together. I also brought stickers because you cannot DevRel without stickers. So these are here. If you're interested in AWS Amplify, if you're in Boston, the Boston AWS meetup is one of the meetups that survived the pandemic. Flying colors. They've done a great job. We'll talk a little bit about what the leader of that meetup actually did to make that happen. But anyway, so my name's Jen Looper. I'm head of academic advocacy at AWS in the developer relations department. You can find me on Twitter at Jen Looper. You can find me online at jenlooper.com, and if you want to email me, that's my professional address, so jelooper@amazon.com. So I'm happy to be here. I used to work at Progress, so I have a lot of love for Progress, and especially one of the products, which was NativeScript and Kendo. So awesome. So let's talk a little bit about some of the communities that I've been involved with, just to give you a little context. One of them is the NativeScript community. We started up that Slack channel and grew it to 10,000 members. That was really, really fun. I'll talk about some of the tricks and tips and tricks that we did to create that interesting Slack experience. I also was managing the Progress, started as Telerik developer experts and then became Progress developer experts. That community, that was also a group on Slack, and we also did activities together, sort of like an ambassador program. I was one of the founding members of Vue Boston, so if you like Vue.js, we helped start that community, and that's an interesting story of how it's kind of ebbing and flowing now as frameworks come and go. I founded an international foundation called Vue Vixens. So we were the women branch of the Vue community, and then I rebranded it, which is a whole vibe in and of itself when you have to rebrand something that has a really strong brand. So we rebranded from Vue Vixens to Front-End Foxes, and shout out to the community. Tomorrow is Front-End Foxes Day, 2022, and it's an online event. We have something like 500 people registered, so I'm really excited about this. 12 women speakers. It's an all-day event, free, online, done with our partners at Certified Fresh Events. And we also run a boot camp, so this is starting up in our fourth cohort, sponsored by Reddit, which is, they've been an incredible partner. So that's Front-End Foxes School. If you go to frontendfoxes.school, you'll find our boot camp. And this is it's a free experience for women developers all over the world who are interested in joining us in an instructor-led format to learn about front-end technologies. So this is something to keep your eye on. We do lots of cool events, and shout out to Reddit because they've been a great partner. I also worked with the Microsoft Student Ambassador community when I was DevRel at Microsoft. And that's you have an ambassador community, and then the user group community is a different type of activity set that you have. And then because I'm at AWS now, we're 20 years behind, but we finally realized that we need to do something about student advocacy. So we're going to be launching AWS Cloud Clubs for students. And this is going to be like a user group, but for students. And this is going to be worldwide. So this is for the post-secondary learners out there who are interested in learning about what I call the Cadillac of the cloud. So it's expensive, it's hard to drive, but we got to get those kids some learner permits. So here we are. So who here is managing communities? I know, Jeff, you've got Angular Boston. Lebogang, what are you working on?
So I don't lead a specific community myself, but I support community leads.
Yeah, okay, so you're like a community lead supporter. Also, I'm going to be repeating some of the things that I'm saying because I know we've got folks streaming. This is a little bit of a hybrid experience, and I want to talk about hybrid learning, so I'll be kind of repeating what you're saying. Carl, are you working with Kendo?
Yes.
Partners?
So we have a little
Cool.
that we're trying to grow a little bit more.
Awesome. So Kendo community is starting up and going stronger, so that's great to know. Who here is working on communities? Are you a part of a community, like that you go to meetups and user groups, or?
Not currently, I was in the past.
Awesome. It used to be that user groups was one of the great ways to get into tech. I remember I joined my user group for Cold Fusion way back in the day. Cold Fusion users group. Anybody else working on communities, managing?
Hi Jen, I'm Adrian Bridgewater. I'm a journalist. I cover developer issues on Computer Weekly, Tech Republican forums, and I'm married to a female programmer. I was just so interested in, obviously.
Yeah, sure. Awesome. Well, great.
That's his mentors, other
Super. Okay, cool. Well, we've got some great community folks, and just for the stream, we've got journalists, we've got managers of community managers, we've got community builders, and people who are going to user groups. This gentleman here, did you?
I attended there in the past. But I think they used to be in Burlington, so it's just easier for me. They moved to Boston, just made it hard for me.
So that's another great bit of feedback. When you start an in-person community and you move it from one location to the other, it can be super challenging. I think when I was part of the Cold Fusion users group, they were having meetings right after work in our office at Sun Life Financial. So that was helpful. You know, if you've got kids, you can at least take maybe a little extra half hour after work and just, you know, attend a meetup. Hugely helpful. So these are all things to think about as we think about going back in person, which is really, really challenging nowadays because we have to think in this hybrid mode. So I'll be talking about that. So I'm going to give you some tips and tricks about how to make your communities healthier, how to rebuild. Since we rebranded Vue Vixens, we had to rebuild the whole thing from scratch almost. It was like a bit of a community cataclysm anyway. So we had issues in the community, so we really had to rethink what we were doing and rebuild. So I've been through this, and it's not fun and it's not easy. But I'm going to give you some strategies about what's working on how to build back better, as we like to say nowadays. And I'm also going to give you some tips on managing a healthy community. Learned the hard way. And then we'll just do a little demo. I want to just do a little icebreaker. And there are folks on the stream. I'm not able to see them. I'm hoping you can hear me. But in a meetup, you might be doing a hybrid stream such that you'd be in person and then you might have a Zoom room. So a lot of teachers are experiencing this nowadays. You know, they have to have these hybrid classrooms. So we're going to kind of presume that we have folks on Zoom watching or Teams or something, and we can break them into breakout rooms at some point. So let's pretend. Let's talk about what happens when you reach out to your community and you ask them, what does your community mean to you? What does it mean to be part of this group? I asked a bunch of Microsoft student ambassadors. There are 5,500 Microsoft student ambassadors worldwide, something like that, large number. Lots of folks in India and Africa specifically, and I asked them, what words, give me 5 words that you associate to this community. This is another good thing to try with your communities. You know, what do you think about when you think about the Microsoft student ambassador community? They came up with some interesting words: collaboration, innovation, growth, and empowerment. So lots of interesting associations. All good words. Cool is here. Cool. Challenge and novel. Networking, inspire, resilience, and ample opportunities. This is a great community to be a part of. You know, what a nice set of words. Inclusive sharing. So try this with your communities. Do a little word association. See what happens. However, sorry, Jeff, this is the slide I know you're not going to like. I went and took a look at some stats on Slack. So this is the Boston JavaScript Slack. I don't know what happened here. Do you remember? It's January, or about Christmas time in 2020. What were we doing? Is that when we did something happened. But anyway, there's a little bit of a spike here and here. 2018 was like, you know, 2017 and 18 was like the golden age. You can see when the community started and when it started going. So Boston JavaScript Slack has been slowly getting quieter and quieter. We're trying to figure out, you know, what's the strategy? What's the best strategy to do to get these communities going again? And one thing someone told me on Twitter, so this is a bit anecdotal, is when you've organized a community associated to a place, these are the communities that have tended to go downhill. I don't know why this is, and I'd love to open this up to the folks. Perhaps because we've been most resistant to the hybrid model. And we weren't from the beginning, welcoming folks on Zoom, welcoming folks from all over the world. So maybe this is a lesson that we've learned. Maybe these hyperlocal communities. I know the London AI meetup as well. Have had trouble with engagement. So this is something to think about. Could also be Slack itself. Yeah.
What about the technology?
JavaScript is the most popular. Yeah. Well, the way that Boston JavaScript has been grouped is we had a big Boston JavaScript meetup, and then we had Boston React, Boston Vue, Boston Angular, and those frameworks, go up and down. Boston Vue.js is having a lot of trouble right now, just keeping going. I don't think we have Boston Svelte, but maybe those are just too granular. Maybe we should regroup as Boston JavaScript, get together. We were thinking of doing a picnic, but I'm really maxed out and I can't organize these things anymore. But so that's another thing. You got to have a deep bench to get new leaders coming up.
So where I'm from, I noticed that there was also a migration of people. So we used to host about 10 developer communities in Johannesburg.
Mm-hmm.
And then a lot of those community leads moved to Cape Town.
So did you see the same disengagement?
Yeah.
So Johannesburg to Cape Town.
Yeah. And there were no successes of the location-based meetups
Yeah.
in the city in which they were created.
Mm-hmm.
So some people ended up rebranding on Meetup instead of saying Johannesburg, this
Mm-hmm.
user group, they're now like South Africa, X user group, and offer hybrid sessions where the in-person will be in Cape Town and then everyone else will attend online.
There you go.
And
Beautiful model for hybrid meetups.
Yeah, but then the succession thing still remains quite a big pain point.
Yeah.
So a lot of the old community leads, it's taken a toll on them to continue doing this through the pandemic and now post the pandemic.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They're looking for new volunteers to sort of, do the heavy lifting as well so that there isn't too much pressure on them to continue
Yes.
the engagements going.
Yeah, this is the idea of having a deep bench, and this is very challenging. I cannot say that I'm very successful at this. I used to have a deeper bench than I do now with front-end foxes. So, having these people that you can count on to come up, we're gradually, what we've done is used our boot camp to build the bench, because I have teachers in my boot camp that I pay to teach a cohort, and they have actually come up from being former students. So they did students, and then they did a mentorship with the boot camp, and now they're teachers and they're paid staff, and then they can, they can take these leadership roles. So there's all these interesting models, but it takes time. It's going to take a solid year to build a bench, I think, that feels healthy. So, what happened to these communities that have kind of died or gone dormant? We talked about being maybe a bit too local, maybe a bit too siloed for health. We talked a little bit about, these tiny frameworks that don't have the local support. Boston React was always big because lots of startups here in Boston use React, so that was kind of a big one. But I don't know what's going on with Boston React. I think they're toast. So that's just wild. And then why did some continue to follow, to kind of I wouldn't say thrive, but at least power through? So Boston, AWS, Boston, the Boston meetup, their strategy has been just go online and stay online. Just have their meetups and make it a monthly cadence. It's on meetup.com. Everybody just expects, it's like, a rhythm of life. Oh, here comes the Boston meetup and they're gonna do something interesting, it's coming. So that's been a continuation. What I was talking about with Front-End Foxes is we pivoted, we built our whole business model on partnering with in-person conferences and going in and then doing workshops. And that was, when conferences died, then you would expect the entire foundation to die, but we decided to just pivot, and we decided to go and become a boot camp. Of course, boot camps have a terrible reputation, so we had to fight that headwind. But we are always free, we're a nonprofit, we're international, and we only accept women as teachers and as students. So it's kind of clear who we are and where we're coming from. But you can kind of rebuild and regroup with this new paradigm. Regroup, rebuild, and then have respect for each other's time, As we like to say at Amazon, we are frugal with each other's time. So it's something that you need to kind of have in mind, and we'll talk about that a little bit. So here is the similar stat from Front End Foxes. We started the Slack in 2018. That was View Amsterdam on stage when I announced the creation of the program, and with just like exponential growth. You know, lots and lots of exciting activities happening. I can't remember what happened at Halloween of 2018, but something interesting. And then we had, you know, this is all pandemic churn, you know, of just up and down and up and down and trying to keep engagement. But what I'm happy about is actually these ebbs and flows. These are boot camps, boot camp cohorts coming in, and some are staying engaged. So here we are again, we're launching our boot camp shortly. So this is kind of nice to see. And that's kind of, it would be nice not to have those spikes. You know, it would be nice to see steady growth, but maybe in this post-pandemic world, this is about as good as you're going to get as you do your activities. So you want to keep a nice amount of engagement on your platform. So what I would recommend is to future-proof your communities. I would recommend this kind of moving away from thinking locally towards actually acting globally. So you know how we in the environmental movement, we say we think global and act local. Well, here I'm encouraging you to kind of bring what you learned from your local meetups and you know, boost those into your global communities. If you have to retool your raison d'être, your reason for being, if you have to retool that, go ahead and do it. Go ahead and rebrand. This is the moment. So, you know, this is a moment where we're going to see some churn. So go ahead and rebrand if you have to rebrand. So we've successfully moved during the pandemic from in-person to online, and now we have to think about hybrid. Shout out to the stream. So keep in mind that, you know, there's folks who are not able to attend your things and who might benefit from a hybrid community. So what does that look like? Hybrid best practices. The teachers have been piloting what it means to be in a hybrid community. You know, they're teaching in person with those students in their classroom, and then they're also on streams. So this was at Google I/O. Did anyone attend this amazing game? I think it's the second or third year they've done it. But you can go in and wander around and meet people, and there's little challenges. It was really, really fun. But this is, you know, these new platforms that are being launched to kind of encourage people to come online and meet people. So what I would like you to do for the rest of this talk is to think about how we can think about radical inclusivity and how we can really, you know, move to this global hybrid model where everyone is welcome and everyone is included. So this is what we're going for, you know, this kind of amazing I/O experience. Of course, it's Google and they can afford to do these amazing platforms, but maybe this is something like what your hybrid meetup could look like. So this is a slide I'm not happy about at all. This is actually from Svelte Summit a few weeks ago. It's an ocean of really similar looking people. This is in Europe, this is in Sweden, so that's part of it. But we have a really serious inclusivity problem. It's not even funny anymore. I went to having co-founded the Boston Vue.js meetup, I went to a meetup. I'm the only lady there, except for the speaker, Gwen Faraday, and she flew in. So it's just, we got to do better. We've got to think more inclusively. We've got to think about, you know, how to bring more people, different kinds of people, into our communities and into our conferences, especially the conferences, especially on the stage and in the attendee group. This is something we really have to be careful about. I'm proud of Progress. Progress has always thought with this kind of idea of radical inclusivity. They've always done nice conferences like this with a nice speaker deck. And it's not like, okay, I'm going to call them out. It's not like VeetConf recently. Huge lineup of dudes and the speakers, and then they kind of like bolted on more inclusive lineup. We can't do this anymore. We're back to 2011. Are you kidding me? You know, so we got to build back better. So this is the slides. Like this is where Jen gets pissed off. So, but I want you to think about Foucault actually, and here I'm bringing out my literature teacher hat and putting it on. This guy who's kind of wild, Michel Foucault. He did a lot of research and a lot of interesting work on the concept of power. So let's talk a little bit about power, because we're talking about building back better, building back communities in a more inclusive fashion. And being inclusive means all of the power is not right here in my clicker. The power is here. So we need to figure out how we can spread out, you know, the idea of who's in control. We're all in control. We all have a say, and we all have something to say. So Foucault talked about how, you know, if we aren't careful and if we're not thinking about these things, we risk acting as unwitting conduits of power structures. And power doesn't really tell us what to do, it tells us how to be. So and whom to be. So we need to think about how the dominant power structures are maintaining superiority over the margins, and we need to flip that script right now and make sure the margins are brought right into the center and right up on stage, if possible. So this is something that we need to think about. Who's in control of these things? Who's running the show? There's a conference right now that has 100 speakers in the lineup. It's extremely unclear to all of us who's paying for this, who's the sponsor, what's going on. It's so weird. So there's a lot of funny shenanigans going on in communities right now. And we need to think about, you know, who's writing the checks and who's included. So there's a really interesting article on Microsoft in their, so at Microsoft, all the fun happens at Microsoft Research. They do all the great work. But this is an article you might want to take a look at. And they talk about the power structure, how we're moving into a hybrid power structure. So they identify 3 different ways that you can manage your meetups from a power standpoint. So this is the hub and satellite power structure, where you have one big local group with one or few remote individuals. So I don't know who's on the stream. Maybe there's just a few. It's hard to know. But I'm guessing that perhaps the remote participants are heavily outnumbered, even with us, with our small group. And they're likely to be disadvantaged. So this is a power structure to think about and to kind of move away from, perhaps. Here's another one, the hub and spoke. So here we have like a bigger conference. We have a local group with a lot of remote endpoints. So a lot of people are watching on Zoom, a lot of people are watching on StreamYard or on YouTube. And then the numeric distribution is more equal, or remotes may outnumber even the local participants, but the hub is still that center of power. So, you know, if you're doing this kind of talk and you forget to, you know, shout out to the stream or to ask people to raise hands and ask questions on the stream, then you're, you know, buying into this kind of interesting hub and spoke, not great power structure. And then the third one is this dumbbell or constellation. So here we have a group of roughly the same size, in theory equal in terms of power, although there's usually this key host hub. And in this situation, because we're weird humans, we tend to schism. So we might have, you know, more attention paid to local versus remote participants, and then the participants might spin off into their own remote thing. So we just need to be aware of who is watching, and what's going on over there, and it would be nice to know. And these are things you can control as you do your meetups. You know, you have your Zooms ready to go. This is listed as an interesting little thing to remember when you are looking to upend your power structures. Charms. I love Microsoft Research. They're fabulous, and they're really, really cool. But these are some techniques that they use, and the acronym is CHARMS. So make sure that chat is enabled. That's the C. How do we use chat? Are there rules around chat? Is someone moderating chat? Do we have a code of conduct in place so the chat doesn't get insane? So that's something to think about. Did you set an agenda? This is more for meetings, but you know, for your meetups in Boston AWS, I noticed that they do have an agenda. They do half an hour of networking, and then they have 1 or 2 talks, and then they between the talks they have, you know, the question session, and then after that they do a little more networking and chit chat, and that's really cool. The M is for a moderator. You know, who's going to be moderating that chat? So things to think about. Who's going to be doing introductions? Who's going to ask questions? Who's the Carl of the room? Make sure that hand raising is possible. At AWS, we use Chime, which nobody's probably heard of. It's, this, you know, it's our version of Zoom. But all of these platforms, I'm pretty sure, have a hand raising feature. I know Teams does. I think Blue Jeans probably does. This is like critically important so that people can raise their hands and you can see that, and you're set up to watch. So you're somebody who's watching Chime and you see the hands raising. In Chime, we actually also have a list of who raised their hand first, so it's kind of cool. So there's each of these platforms has their own little benefits. Recording. Should we record? Is everybody okay with us recording? We're doing an AMA with Reddit, and they've specifically asked us not to record. That's good to know, because now I need to make sure that everybody shows up, because we have the CTO of Reddit coming to speak to my girls. This is really important, so we want everybody to be on that AMA. And then the last one is S, support. How are we supporting each other? Is there any kind of time for check-ins? Can you break into Zoom breakouts and check in with each other, make sure everybody's doing well, and then make sure that room devices are, so there's some tech checking going on, make sure that your devices are all nicely handled. So these are all good and solid tips for managing your hybrid meetings. So that's enough about hybrid power structures and how we can upend them and think radically inclusively. But I want to give you some tips that I've used in the past to just grow your community and make sure it thrives. So I'm going to pause for a second. Anybody have any questions? I would shout out to the stream, but I don't know what's going on the stream. So if there's any questions on the stream, let me know.
Discord on there.
Yeah.
So you know who's really good at building communities?
Tell.
15 to 25-year-old.
That's why I'm dealing with students.
They're doing it on Discord.
And we're doing it on Discord.
Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe we can talk a little bit about what's going on these platforms, because platform is really important. It's been suggested to me that I should build my student communities on Slack. I don't think it's going to work. I don't think so. And I think that some of our engagement in front-end Foxes lags a little because we're on Slack. And we built on Slack. I've got 1,500 women in my Slack. It's really going to be hard to migrate onto Discord. There's going to be, and I've already built this community, rebuilt it once or twice. I don't want to do it again on Discord, but especially on a free Slack, because there you lose your chains of old messages. Teams is more corporate, maybe, so there might be companies who are preferring to use that if they're on the Microsoft stack. I don't find, to be perfectly honest, Teams great for building community. I think it can get noisy very easily, and there are fewer fun things. We chose Slack because of all the cool emojis and the cool bots and the fun things that you can do. But Discord is really where it's at with the kids, for sure. There are some, I think there's some Python communities as well using Discord. I think we're going to see an evolution, and I think we better get used to Discord. Discord is great for video meetings. So I'm thinking for my cloud clubs, they should be able to just have a really quick video meeting. They'll have a schedule that on Wednesday evenings we're going to talk about JavaScript, and then we're just going to boom, video. And it's really powerful. I really like it. And then you can pay for extra things using their Nitro. You can get a Nitro server. It's also great for hackathons because Discord has a lovely onboarding experience, and you can really set your code of conduct, and you have to check that you agree to it and all these nice onboarding experiences. Slack has some of it, but I think Discord is where it's at. So find your platform and level up. And then set the atmosphere. Set the atmosphere by using these apps that are available. I took a little tour of Teams when I was at Microsoft and looked for cool things we can do to help with engagement. There's the Happy Bot, but my favorite one on Slack is actually Donut. Donut is really cool, and it'll help match you to various people so you can have quick meetings and get to know each other. That's a fun thing. The Kudos app on Teams is very good. And bots on Discord are helpful in this area too, just to have a fun atmosphere. Secret Santas and stuff like that. We'll talk about that. It's really important to just get people the tools they need and the tools that they're comfortable with. So when you're building your community, and if it's like a skilling community, like an ambassador program, you just want to make sure that you have listed out carefully, and this is not something we used to do that well, but where is everything? Is there something that you can pin at the top of your Slack channel so that people will know where your logos are stored, that kind of thing. So where's the code of conduct? Where are the tools? Where are the activities? Where's all the stuff? You can pin that into your channels. And then also, stay on the lookout for adding things to basically what you're building is a circulating library of stuff. Another idea is to really cultivate your helpers, and here's where we talk about the bench and how we're trying to build up that next generation of leaders so that you don't have to do everything. You can appoint some community manager helpers to act as a welcome wagon, so they're the ones who are in charge of welcoming new people. I have a lovely gal, Andrea, in Holland, who periodically has a welcome message that she posts on Slack. You could even probably automate that, some of it. We have, let's see, we have also another lady who is going to be teaching my intermediate cohort. She has some welcome messages that she periodically posts, where's our code of conduct, where's all this stuff. So appoint some community manager types, and they can grow into bigger roles as you go. And of course, this should be obvious, but appreciation is key. You want to make sure to thank people nicely for doing what, maybe send them a t-shirt, maybe send them some sticker packs. And it's hard when you're working in a huge international community, but maybe there are things you can do to show your appreciation. And again, grow that next generation of helpers, or when you've had enough and your plate is full, either you're going to be stuck with it or the community is going to die, and that's really sad. That's just so sad. So at Microsoft, we used to say, as managers, we would model, coach, and care. And I still think this is a great phrase. You model good behavior. You coach folks into how that behavior is going to be, and then you care enough to make sure to pass it down to the next generation. So all important things to think about. And there are awesome community people out there, and you can really model your behavior on them. So this is Tracy. A lot of people know Tracy, and she says, some people ask why I do so much for the JavaScript community. What do I get? Believe that when you love wholeheartedly, it comes back. It really does. You're going to be changing lives, and this is an important thing to think about as you go. So find those role models.
Jen,
Yeah?
can I just ask? So, personally, I don't know Tracy, right? But I'm just thinking, if you have amazing people like that, and let's say JavaScript was an open source and it was like owned by an organization, and let's call it JavaScript. And she ends up being a cloud advocate at JavaScript. Because now she's in that role at the company, people don't see her as a community lead anymore.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, oh, she's doing this because she's getting paid for it.
Yeah.
So how do you protect individuals like Tracy who are literally doing this because they love it, but they just happen to also work for the same organization?
This is the challenge of DevRel. So the question is, how can someone like Tracy, if she was hired by a mega company, how can she preserve her authenticity? And this is the challenge of DevRel as we evolve DevRel. And we have to make sure that our leadership understands that we are not product shills, we are not sales. AWS is under marketing, which is kind of funny. AWS DevRel is under marketing, so we're actually marketeers. But it's really important to just maintain your authenticity. Talk about awesome people in other communities. Like, I can still talk about some cool things that happen with the Microsoft Student Ambassador Program because it's a beautiful role model for what I'm trying to build. So you can, we're not prevented from talking. Well, hopefully, we're not prevented from talking about other things. When I came to Progress, my first article was about how to build on Ionic, and I got in trouble for it because it was not about Ionic. But I, my leader, Burke, was able to explain to leadership that this is how we build our authenticity. So I think even if you can't talk about competitor products, if that's really not what you're allowed to do, at least you can talk about, not just the awesome things, but also the challenges of your own products, and help people get over those challenges. So we're dipping into DevRel, but it all comes into community management. So and it's all about your leadership and all about talking to your service teams to make sure they're okay with that. Yeah.
Yeah. At the end of the day, to generate value, like in the community, you're giving it to generate value. If you're just trying to take from it, it becomes very obvious quickly.
It's very obvious, yeah. Product shills, and a lot of DevRel get dunked on pretty good for being product shills, so yeah, it gets exciting.
Sorry. So what I meant, it wasn't so much from the organization side. Because then community is fair playing ground if people don't feel like other communities have an advantage over them based on where they work. So how do you keep the spirit of community alive when you have, different people from different roles playing in the same field? So for example, maybe let's take AWS heroes. You are loved today as a hero, and then tomorrow you are employed by AWS as an advocate, and then all the other heroes are like, are you doing what you're doing because you love what you're doing, or because it's now part of your KPIs? And when it comes to thought leadership, now other heroes feel as though you may have an advantage over them because you are privy to things that they probably don't have privy to. So for purposes of the actual community, how do you make sure the community leaders themselves, feel like they all belong, irrespective of where they work?
Where they work, yeah. Well, as you know, in Microsoft, you're not allowed to stay as an MVP when you're employed. Same thing with AWS. The heroes need to stop being heroes. They're still heroic. But I think that the community will understand that once you're not a hero anymore, you're an employee, you have a little bit different standing, a little bit different role to play in the community. As an employee, either way though, I think that a healthy meetup has an AWS hero, an MVP, and a GDE all on the same stage, so that we can all collaborate and work together without, being product shills and without dunking on each other. We're not doing framework wars anymore, right? And we're not dunking on each other. So I think that it's a question of, watching your behavior and making sure that you're radically inclusive. I would just keep falling back on that as a motif. I'm only up to tip 5, and I have 10 and an activity, and I have 10 minutes to go, but this is me blabbering. So I'll just mention that you can spin up contests and activities, try a mini hackathon. We do Secret Santas sometimes. We did this in our in the Progress developer expert community. It was really fun. You're matched up with someone, and you have to send them a tweet saying how awesome they are or something like that. So that's the gift. Of course, then it's not really secret because you're tweeting. But anyway, it doesn't really work very well, but you get the idea. Blogs, of course, amplify great contributions, retweet and repost, and then about the blogs, you can feature a community member. That's a nice way to build, to build your community. You write your blog post about them and how great they are. This is a really solid way also to get experience as a blogger. Swag, we're entering a post-swag era, I think. This is real interesting. I saw that face. All I have in my little bag now is stickers. I don't even have pins anymore, 5 minutes. But you can do virtual badges, and you can create them for free on Canva. Canva is Developer Advocacy's great friend. So just go to Canva and create badges, and then you can say, give them badges. And of course, we're building careers. With students especially, they're not just interested in skilling, they're interested in building their careers. So you can do things like mock interviews, give them a professional headshot. That's a huge green way to send swag. Hire a photographer and do headshots. It's a great way to show your appreciation. LinkedIn, you can review each other on LinkedIn. That's hilarious. So, but it's like some people really like it. And then ask people to practice their conference talks in your meetups. So I know that people are thinking that talking in meetups is not as prestigious, but it's a great way to start. It's a great way to practice. So please come and speak at our meetups. And model acts of love and joy. Shout out your community. Like just randomly on Twitter, say, we need to gas up TJ because he's just incredible. So then we have huge, like a wall of love. I want to talk a little bit less about the crazy people, but just to know that there are trolls. There are toxic people, and what I want to just mention is that you want to have your code of conduct in place and enforced. It's not just a question of posting this thing, but you've got to enforce it. So if you go to GitHub on Front End Foxes, you'll find the accountability ladder. With Tracy, we created this, so what happens, 1 strike, 2 strike, 3 strikes. So there's some interesting thoughts about this, about leveling up your activities and your attitudes if you have a problematic person. This gives a little bit of a framework on how to manage this stuff. but please enforce your code of conduct. Here's a book you can read by Peter Hitchens, Social Architecture, Building Online Communities. It'll be okay. We're going to get through this, and we're going to build back better, because the rewards are real. So try to improve. What I wanted you to do is actually try an activity. So this is the slide I want to just really, really quickly do. So there is a quiz. So this is something we do at Front End Foxes. If you screenshot this, you'll open a quiz, and it's going to be like a sorting hat. So you're going to sort yourself into the type of fox you are. So we've done this in person and also online. So ideally what you would do is you would have this quiz, have people go through it. It's completely not scientific, so it's just it's very random. But it'll give you the type of fox you are, and then you organize small groups by their fox personality type. And you could do this in a hybrid model by having Zoom breakouts named after the type of fox. So when you're done with that, what I would do then is I have some questions, and when you're done and we're in our groups, we can quickly just go for questions if we have time. Did it work for you? Oh. Did it work for other people?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. With your camera. Yeah. Yeah. No worries. But let me know when you've completed your quiz. I think you just point your camera. Which one did you get? Okay, you're a hulijing. These are the deadly ones. Jeez. So then what I would do is I would say, okay, all the hulijings can gather together, and you can pull one of these, and then this is like a question bank that you can discuss. So if anybody else is a hulijing, anybody is a kitsune? You kitsune? Okay, you can pull. There you go. Any other kitsunes? You're a hulijing. Okay, so then you would join Jeff and discuss this question. So if you could be great at any Olympic sport, which would it be? So this would be like a discussion topic that you could do, you know, with your Zoom rooms. Any kitsunes? Any other kitsunes? I can't remember the other types that there are. I haven't done this quiz for a while. You're a cadmium fox? Okay, any cadmiums? Everybody got a different fox. Which one did you get? Oh my gosh, that's a new one. But anyway, so you just like pull a I don't think I've ever had anyone get that. You must be very unusual. Very unusual. What was the other one? Did you get? Okay, so you can pull. Craft project. Pale fox. Everyone's a different fox. You're kidding me. So then you would pull one of these and like, oh my gosh, we're all different. That's so interesting. That's a new one. My goodness. There you go.
Diversity that you wanted.
Yeah, we're radically diverse, so that's cool. So anyway, did you get your questions? So then you would say, okay, we would have. So prior to this, we'd get our Zoom breakouts organized and named according to all these foxes, and then you would start a discussion. So anyone have an answer to your question? Okay, and then what? So the question was, if you could be great at any Olympic sport, what would it be? And then what would you say? Diving? I'm so scared. I would never do it. I'd be good at like eating popcorn in the stands. Any answers?
Yeah, so the question was, what is your favorite vacation spot?
What's your favorite vacation spot for the stream?
Mine's Key West, because that's where I got married, and we return there often for anniversaries.
Oh, Key West is fabulous. So nice. Any answers?
Yeah, so I had a who was your most unique pet, and I don't remember all the types that we had, but we used to just go out into the woods and like pick up snakes and, like, and then have them for a while. So
What kind of fox are you again?
Non-venomous.
Non-venomous, amazing. So yeah, your favorite pet would be a non-venomous snake. Any other answers that you got?
Yeah, mine was was the worst job you ever had?
What's the worst job you ever had?
I was
Ooh.
a caddy when I was very young. It was a lot of getting up at 5 in the morning and waiting.
A golf caddy. So like, oh yeah.
Not recommend that.
Yes, I was a waitress. I was probably the worst waitress because I really don't care if you get your food or not. So it's like, shut up and sit down and eat. Any other questions that you wanted to answer?
Best dessert, carrot cake.
Best dessert is carrot cake. It's delicious. Yes, best dessert. And what did you get?
My question was, do you prefer funny stories or dramatic ones? If it's dramatic, based on lights out.
Funny stories or dramatic stories for the stream, and the preference is dramatic stories. Rings of Power, which is actually pretty good. So, cool. Yeah, so this is just a little sample of an activity that you can very quickly do just to get that icebreaker happening. And you never know, maybe you're going to find some Fox leaders, in your communities, and you can start building your bench because God knows we need help. So that's it for me. Honestly, I just wanted to thank you all for coming. If you'd like some stickers, I've got those. And how are you building your tribe? Reach out and let's chat. You can always find me on Twitter. So thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.